Welcome into Payoff Pitch. We are Action Network's Major League Baseball betting podcast presented by BetMGM. Brendan Glasheen, joined by Tanner McGrath and Charlie DiSturco on this Sunday evening, August 4th, getting you set for Monday, August 5th in Major League Baseball. 9-game slate coming your way. It gets started at 5:15, I'm reading. A 5:15 start between the Mets and the Cardinals. A makeup game they got to squeeze in on a Monday for the Mets and Cardinals. So they're going to get that in, and then on to regular business with Arizona and Cleveland starting at 6:40. You got to, I don't know. The Phillies, they had a win today, but are we still comfortable putting the Phillies and the Dodgers are the two favorites in the National League. They are meeting. That's one of the marquee series going on tomorrow. And you've got the White Sox, who really suck, really bad, 20 straight losses. They're going to go to Oakland. I think we're going to talk about that game tonight. So a lot of good stuff to sink our teeth into, even though it's just a 9-game slate. So we'll work all that in. We'll start with best bets first. I'll go to Tanner. What do you got for us tonight for Monday's slate, the 5th of August?
Yeah, I'm going back to a team that us here at the Action Network love. I'm going to be on the Minnesota Twins, money line at the Cubs, 8 p.m. Eastern game. I got minus 120 on the money line on the Twins. I feel like anything minus 130 or better is good. I'm still in on David Festa. He's the starting pitcher for the Twins on Monday. I think his fastball, slider, changeup mix plays. The stuff plus metrics across his arsenal are crazy high. He's posted a rock-solid 20% strikeout minus walk rate across his first 20 MLB innings. He got a little unlucky with the long ball in his first few starts, which kind of explains his really high ERA. But he put together a really good outing against the red-hot Mets in his most recent start. 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, 1 walk, and 1 homer. If he keeps his fastball up and his breaking balls down, he could be a really, really efficient middle rotation guy. Conversely, I'm so very out on Kyle Hendricks, the Cubs starting pitcher for Monday. I think he's turning into the next Patrick Corbin. I really do. He's been among the worst starting pitchers in baseball this season. He has a negative WAR, expected run indicators pushing 5. He's allowed 21 earned runs over his past 27 innings with 17 strikeouts to 9 walks and 6 home runs. He's too easily hittable. He has no stuff, negative stuff. He can't command that 88 mile per hour fastball as well as he did during his, the professor days. And his changeup just isn't playing as well as it used to. He's on pace for a career low swinging strike rate, a career low chase rate, and a career high WOBA allowed on that pitch. I think he's lost some depth on that pitch, some sinking action, but I can't be sure. Either way, it's not working. And, we love the Twins here at the Action Network. The lineup is so dynamic. It's so dangerous, especially with Royce Lewis slugging 600 since his return in late July. The Twins are 6-3 in those games, by the way, and I don't think that's a coincidence. They're the third best lineup against right-handed pitching over the past month. They're a top 10 defensive team. They're trending up in the bullpen. I just want to bet this team as much as possible down the stretch. Conversely, the Cubs, maybe a league average lineup at best. Only 3 players in the regular 9-man lineup have an above average OPS. They're fairly top heavy surrounding Seiya Suzuki. And the Twins are the opposite of that, by the way. They're the epitome of depth. It's kind of funny. Fangraphs recently published an article talking about how Judge and Soto are carrying the Yankees lineup like no other duo has ever carried a lineup before. The Twins rank dead last in the top 2 hitters' share of weighted runs created. So the top 2 hitters, how much they've, contributed to the offense. Yet they are still a top 10 lineup. That's the type of team that could win the whole thing. Yep. Anyway, also the Cubs bullpen running hot, but due for plenty negative, a lot of negative regression, especially now that Mark Leiter Jr. plays for the Yankees, while Hayden Wesniewski and Jordan Wicks are on the IL. And the Cubs played on Sunday Night Baseball. They're playing right now, actually, as we record this. And it's generally a smart move to fade teams coming off that late night Sunday game. So hopefully the bats are slow and the Twins roll to an easy victory.
Twins, yeah, they are. I think not after this series, they'll get the Guardians head to head. That's a pretty big series as it pertains to the division.
And I will be betting the Twins in that series.
Yeah, 4-gamer, I think, too. So that'll be good. That'll give us some clarity. Either way, I think either we get a really tight race going into the final weeks of August, September, or the Guardians can kind of run away with it. Speaking of good series that kind of has implications, the wild card, Red Sox and Royals are competing for that final wild card. It appears the last wild card in the American League, and that is where Charlie's going to go for his best bet.
Yeah, heading to there to take the over, 9.5 runs. The Boston Red Sox offense is so legit. And the last 30 days, they have 135 WRC plus. That ranks first in all of baseball. And then when you even filter it a little bit further and you go right-handed pitching, well, how good have they been against right-handers? A 149 WRC plus. So I love this matchup against Brady Singer, who we've talked about plenty of times on this podcast. A guy that is due for plenty of negative regression. A few runs higher is his expected ERA, right around 4.45 than actual. His barrel rate is just a 1/10 of a percentage point off his career worst. He's getting hit hard. He's basically just benefiting from being a ground ball pitcher that gets timely ground balls, usually hit hard, and a career best 82% strand rate, and also has benefited from a BABIP under 280 as well. All of this is just a perfect storm for the Red Sox, who have crushed righties to find success at the plate offensively. It's also a huge mismatch for some of the players like Darren Duran and Rafi Devers. Brady Singer against left-handed hitters, a 284 average and an 850 OPS. And the Red Sox can easily stack multiple left-handers against him. And then you have the power guys like O'Neill or even like Connor Wong in the middle lineup that should be able to do some damage. And then Kansas City, another team. We've talked about how many times about how good they are at home. They're home. They're top 10 in WRC plus over the last 30 days. And at home, they're hitting 270 with a 770 OPS. On the road, that's down at 236 and the OPS at 674. So I think this is a great another spot against, let's see, who's on the list? James Paxton starting the mound, somehow still pitching in the bigs, 483 expected ERA, a sub 5% strikeout minus walk rate, gives up a ton of fly balls, gets hit pretty hard, over 43.5%. And I think this is a great matchup for a team that surprisingly, or I guess like suspectly, does way better at home. I think both offenses are going to find success here in great matchups. And both bullpens, by the way, are pretty bad. Boston 17th in xFIP, KC 28th, but then you filter it. In the last 30 days, Boston's dead last in xFIP, a 5.23. We've talked about how bad that bullpen is, and it's not going to get any better. So I would not be surprised to see both teams, one of the two teams, if not both, put up 7 to 10 runs in this game. I think it could get really crazy. I wouldn't mind some alts. I think Paxton and Singer, I wouldn't be surprised if they're out by the third, fourth inning, and this just turns into a bullpen fest.
I think James Paxton has now become like he's kind of in that same conversation now as your Patrick Corbins, your Dallas Bradens. Is he there yet? I feel like it's getting close.
I disagree, but I'm going to hold off until later.
I'd say he's not there yet. Mostly he's damage control. He has not been hit as hard as he probably should. So like if you look at his recent game logs, he's not like Patrick Corbin giving up 7 to 10 runs in a start.
That's fair. He was freaking bad the other night, like really bad.
Yeah, I was afraid to take Arizona that game because it would just like with Walker getting hurt and everything. And I'm like, I don't know. And then they just go out and they absolutely just choke slam Patrick Corbin.
Yeah, for what they want, though, it's a good way of putting it. Damage control is what he's kind of been. That's what he's there for right now, to eat some innings for Alex Cora and the Red Sox. So yeah, that's a big series too for a swing in the wild card. Because I believe, yes, the Royals already went to Fenway, so this is their last meeting head to head. This is a big kind of swing series for these teams too. Tanner said he'd have thoughts later. I suppose, right? Unless you want to weigh in now on James Paxton and react.
No, I'll wait.
All right. Good deal. I think I know why. Got it. All right. Let's go to Fade the Public. Dodgers Phillies is our featured discussion point for this particular segment. 74% of the bets, 99% of the cash, according to our free award-winning action app. The cash and bets coming in on the Dodgers, who just scraped by the A's to take 2 of 3. That was not an easy 2 of 3 without Freddie Freeman in the lineup. Still no Mookie Betts, but they take 2 of 3 from the A's. Dodgers send Tyler Glasnow to the mound. They're at home hosting the Phillies. They get off the schneid. They beat the Mariners on Sunday afternoon. They'll send Aaron Nola to the mound. All right. Tanner, what do we think here? The Phillies here we are again. We talked about this on Friday. The Phillies are an underdog heading into this one. What do you think?
Yeah, I think I like the Phillies here. They've obviously they're struggling, right? They've lost like 6 consecutive series or whatever. I think they just won this one against Seattle, but before that. But I think the tide has to turn eventually. Like, I think they could finally be undervalued. Like, Bryce Harper looked much better in his at-bats over the weekend at Seattle. Wheeler tossed 8 innings of near perfect ball on Sunday. So the bullpen is going to be fully rested for this Monday matchup. And I think I'm buying Aaron Nola. He just keeps throwing harder and harder. Like, his fastball and sinker velocity is up over a tick across his past 7 starts. His knuckle curve looks unhittable right now, mostly because it plays off of his faster fastball. He's seen his swinging strike rates tick up. He struck out 46 guys across 42 innings during the stretch, posting earned run indicators right around 3. He's posted a 116 stuff plus mark across his past few starts compared to 104 on the season. I think he's in a really good place right now. And, on the other mound, it's impossible to fade Tyler Glasnow. Like, he's just too good. But he does look a little shaky recently. I think he's lost a bit of command. He's walked 9 batters across his past 20 innings. He's allowed 15 earned runs across those 20 innings. That's a 6.4 ERA. And I think maybe the Phillies could be catching him at a bad time. And obviously, the Dodgers are very vulnerable in the lineup right now. They're vulnerable without Mookie Betts, without Freddie Freeman, without Max Muncy. The bottom half of the order is a mess. They're striking out a ton, like the second highest strikeout rate in baseball over the past month and a nearly 30% rate over the past 2 weeks. They aren't hitting the ball that hard, and they're pushing too many balls, right? So they have under a 40% hard hit rate and pull rate over the past 2 weeks and an under 6% barrel rate. So they're hitting everything opposite field into the ground. It's not how you hit. I also don't really love how the Dodgers bullpen looks lately. There's just not that many arms in that unit I trust. Like, Evan Phillips doesn't really look like himself. Why are we running Michael Kopech out for bullpen innings? They've been erratic. They've been walking a lot of guys. The Phillies lineup.
I forgot Michael Kopech existed until
why is he pitching high leverage innings or even middle reliever innings for the Dodgers? It doesn't make sense. Yeah. And the Phillies lineup has been a complete disaster recently, but they broke through for 11 runs across the final 2 games in Seattle, and a notoriously tough hitting environment. I'm hopeful that they can keep trending up. I think I'm going to end up on the Phillies here. I've talked myself into it. I like Nola, and I think it's a good spot for the Phillies.
There's a report from the LA Times that Freddie Freeman might, or I should word it correctly, could rejoin the Dodgers during the series against the Phillies that begins Monday.
I saw that his son did, for lack of a better term, pull through. So we're all very happy about that.
That's good. Yeah, I know we hit on that a little bit on Friday. And then Mookie Betts, as it goes with Mookie, will be ready to return from the 10-day IL during the team's next road trip, which would begin August 12th in Milwaukee.
Wow, that's huge. That's huge, especially in the NL West race with the Padres surging. That's massive.
So it's just a report from some of the folks down on the ground in LA. So reinforcements, perhaps. Freeman on the earlier side, but Betts, we'll keep an eye if he's back sooner rather than later, because I know we talked about him briefly the other day too. What say you, Charlie? What do you think with the Philadelphia Phillies? They have not been underdogs often this year, and they're going to be dogs here against the Dodgers.
Yeah, I don't hate the Phillies on the money line here. I'm going first 5 under. I took 4.5 minus 140. I'm fine with 4. I don't know if I'd take 3.5, but I know that number is kind of starting to move around. But listen, Tyler Glasnow, I am slightly nervous about him, mostly because he just pitched his career high in innings. Like, he just passed that number, 121. So, like, is he starting to tire out in the back end because he hasn't done this much? Maybe. Like, I think it was the IL stint that he had early on was more of a phantom IL, trying to just give him some rest. I think they might even do the same thing with him down the stretch here to preserve his innings. But that being said, you look at his numbers. He has a 260 expected ERA, actual right around 350. He has an elite strikeout rate to get him out of, runners in scoring position and danger, and a sub 200 expected batting average. So looking at year over year and how he's limited his hard hit rate, which has dropped nearly 6% from last season, his barrel rate down 3.5% is also huge because he always was a guy that gave up a ton of home runs. I like buying on Glasnow and Nola, and I don't need to really talk more about Nola. Tanner did a great job at talking about him he's generating weaker contact. I also like how he's throwing his sinker change a little bit more. So all of this to say, and given the Phillies struggles, I think the first 5 under plays here. I think both teams, I think the Dodgers have real offensive issues right now without Freddie in that middle of the lineup. And we saw with the Athletics, basically what they did was pitch around Shohei. And I think aside from like a 9th inning home run, he didn't do anything this series, much at all. Basically tried to make anyone else beat them, and they barely held on today 3-2. As you mentioned, they scraped by the A's in the 3-game series. And in the Phillies offense, like, yes, they played a little bit better, but it took until the 8th inning today for them to score runs other than the Kyle Schwarber leadoff homer. I think both teams offensively, you're getting them at a good time. And so I don't hate the Phillies here, but I also would rather go with an IL with 2 pitchers that I believe are, 2 of the best in baseball, at least in the National League.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, considering I know we talk about the Dodgers lineup a lot, but the Phillies rotation with, Wheeler looking good is a huge sign. That's a great sign for the Phillies. But they've got some bumps and bruises in there. The Dodgers have had bumps and bruises. Zerillo, I think, Tanner, you were there too. I'm trying to remember. It was Tanner and Zerillo talked about the Padres at length the other night. I mean, it just because of the deficiencies in those teams makes me feel that the National League, it's not necessarily a slam dunk with your Dodgers, Phillies, and Braves.
Yeah, we'll see. I mean, we'll see what happens. I don't think the Braves are a different story. I don't actually think they're in this conversation right now. But the Dodgers, we'll see when Mookie and Freddie return, and they actually have a lineup of Mookie, Freddie, and Ohtani, and Will Smith. Like, that 4 is some of the best 4, especially with Gavin Lux playing the way he is. They're looking. Yeah. They're going to look more and more like themselves. But I will say, because I didn't even get to talk about this because you guys talked about it on Friday. The Padres,
the way you just put it too, it's like the Avengers all coming back for
it's literally like, all right, and Glasnow will come back and be great in the postseason, I think, and everyone's just Walker Buehler's about to return, Bobby Miller will come back, like the Dodgers will basically come October have everybody, which scares me. But the Padres, and listen, the first bet I made after they came back against they came back against the Dodgers when I put it in the app was them to make the playoffs. They were still a -110 out there, and that's long gone. And I think that the Padres are really legit. And if you haven't already listened to any of them, Tanner, Zerillo, anyone talking about the Padres, like, buy them, because I think this team I think pound for pound can go with the Dodgers as if they get Musgrove or Darvish back. But I mean, until then, like, they're going to be a team to watch, and I would be really surprised for them not to make the playoffs and not to make a run at winning the conference.
Well, they also have the Marlins, the Pirates, and I think the Rockies up next. Like, that's their next 15 games. Like, they could go 10-5 in their next 15 games, and all of a sudden they're 2 back in the NL West race, right? Yeah, and right. My problem with the Dodgers is, like, I know you're talking about all these pitchers coming back. I don't really know how the rotation is going to shake out. I mean, the only 2 guys that have been there all season are Tyler Glasnow and Gavin Stone. Everyone else has been hurt or traded or going through disastrous seasons like Bobby Miller. I don't know how this rotation shakes out. At least the Padres have a bunch of dudes that can just throw innings, Like, I don't know if the Dodgers have
Martin Perez comes in and just throws 5 or 6, and it's like, how the fuck did Martin Perez?
And the Padres will just hit. They'll just dink and dunk their way to 6 runs, and they'll win games. So
yeah, I mean, no, listen, long term, I think Padres buying them, like, if you didn't get on them to make the playoffs, you missed the boat on that number. But like, I don't think the National League is out of this question either. But like, Yamamoto's rehabbing back too. Like, I think you'll get a good. I mean, if you're buying now. And I wouldn't buy in a couple weeks. Like, you have to buy like today if you haven't already. You'll get a good number to, at least if you want to maybe hedge out come the playoffs. If they get into the NL, the championship, the NLCS, and it's them and the Dodgers going toe to toe, and you might get a good number there.
I got 12-1 on the division. I love that. I'd take that to 9-1.
That's down to 7-1 now. You're talking Padres.
Ooh. Yes, Padres.
Yeah. I get so annoyed when we talk about the Dodgers also because you just mentioned Miller and Buehler, and then they have Yamamoto too.
Yeah, I just looked at their depth chart.
And then Ohtani's not even pitching this year. It's just every time they have that guy. Oh, and they have that guy. And the two guys you named that have been there all year, Tanner, Glasnow, as Charlie said, already hit his innings career high. That's a red flag, and he's 30. It's not like he's still young. 30s, he's 30. And Gavin Stone, I feel like he's been up and down on this show this year.
Four earned runs in 4 of his last 5. He's showed cracks. It's going to happen with young guys pitching deep into the season, you know?
No wonder Dave Roberts they kick it out of the divisional series. He's like, what the hell do I do? It's like less is more sometimes, maybe. I don't know. But all right. This is the time of year, though. They got to start like Tanner said, it's weird. Like, 'cause it's such an individually driven sport. Like, how does it fit? We got to find that out at some point soon, you'd think. All right, let's go to underdogs. This is where the Red Sox come up. Tanner likes the Red Sox. Why?
Yeah, let's talk about my Boston Red Sox. I'm taking them on the money line at the Royals.
Can we say hour now? I'm back in. I've been back in.
You're back in.
I went to the game Wednesday. I cheered.
This is a Red Sox heavy podcast. We have a lot of Sox.
I don't mind them.
Anyways, 8 p.m. Eastern time game in Kansas City. So pushing back on Charlie a little bit. I am fine with the James Paxton deal for Boston. And I was actually fine with the Red Sox deadline as a whole. And I said it before the deadline on this very podcast. The Sox need arms. They need innings eaters to help get Tanner Houck and Cutter Crawford through the year because both are blowing through career highs in innings pitched. Pivetta and Criswell can't stay healthy. And Bayo is still young, inconsistent, up and down, can't figure out a sinker thing. And I think any arm is fine because Andrew Bailey and Justin Willard have proven they can coach up any pitcher. Any arm is fine. That arm will ultimately overperform. And what you're going to see with Paxton in Boston is way fewer fastballs, way more sinkers, and way more curveballs because sinking, cutting fastballs and off-speed breaking stuff perform better than low velo fastballs, which is what Paxton has turned into this year. You know, he's lost 2 ticks on his 4-seam. That's the RPU plan, man. That's Boston's run prevention unit is revolutionizing how we think about approaching the art of pitching. And, you know, I was fine with Paxton's debut against Seattle last week. 6 runs on the board, but only 3 were earned. He struck out 5 with only 1 walk. He's been awful. He's been the butt of all our jokes on this show, one of our favorite fade candidates. But I think we're underestimating what the Red Sox coaching staff can do with arms. I mean, they took the same staff that they had last year when Boston finished bottom 10 in every pitching metric and turned them into a top 10 staff. And I think that they can do something similar with Paxton just by telling him to throw sinkers and off-speed stuff. Now, I'm scared of fading the Royals offense at home where they're a wagon. But again, you know, pushing back on Charlie a bit, they are in their worst split. The Royals are about 5% worse against southpaws and against righties. And surprisingly, they've posted a measly 84 WRC plus against lefties at home this season, compared to a 113 mark against righties at home. Now, backing Charlie in this thing, I'm not scared of fading Brady Singer, not at all. You know, he has a decent slider, but he has a horrific low velo sinker, and he's a monster negative regression candidate. I don't know if Charlie talked about this, but it's your typical stuff, right? Low BABIP, high strand rate. He has a 2.8 ERA, but a 4.5 expected ERA. That's going to come around. Boston, by the way, has the 4th highest team OPS against sinker slider combinations, which explains why Singer allowed 4 runs across 2 2/3 innings the last time these two met up in mid-July. And, you know, Charlie mentioned it. Look, the Sox are just always going to score. They're so dynamic in the lineup. They're so good. Duran and Devers are so good. They're really fast and athletic and dynamic, so they can overperform their BABIP marks and manufacture runs in the base paths. I really like this offense. And as Charlie mentioned, again, they crush right-handed pitching because they have a lefty-heavy lineup. They stack lefties in that lineup. And Singer is super vulnerable in that area, like Charlie talked about. Now, also, I think the Red Sox have a pretty big bullpen advantage, considering, you know, Bailey and Willard have coached up a half-decent bullpen, while the Royals, I genuinely think the Royals are a bottom 2 bullpen, maybe them and the Jays. You know, they're 24th in bullpen WAR, 28th in bullpen expected FIP. Either way, yeah, I like the Sox on Monday as moderate underdogs. You know, plus 120 or better, plus 110 or better. I think it's a good spot.
Okay. Paxton, Bayo, and Crawford is how they line up, and then you've got Singer, Lugo, Reagans.
Thank God that I'm on this podcast and not BJ, because if it was BJ and you guys are schmoozing Paxton and the Red Sox this hard, I mean, we'd have to cut the tape.
I wasn't sure.
I'm not
I
saying he's good. I just think that we
know.
we all hate on him because he was so bad with the Dodgers, and he was really bad. But we have to talk about like his adjustments, and you could already see it in his last start. In his first start with Boston, his sinker usage was up like 15%. His fastball usage was down 10%, and his curveball usage was up. And that could be all the difference. Just not throwing your bad fastball could turn you into not a good pitcher, but like a league average one, which is all the Sox need.
It was also against Seattle, and Seattle's especially without J-Rod, the offense is okay. I don't know.
They've been trending up. They've been trending up lately.
Yeah.
I don't know. About the process.
I wouldn't be surprised for this game to be like 10-9 Red Sox win, right? Like
I'll take that. I take that.
Fair.
I would not be surprised if it's something like that.
If BJ was here, we'd be pants off for Paxton.
Yeah.
All right, Charlie. What's your underdog play for tomorrow, Charlie?
I wrote this down in our rundown, and I said, I don't know if I could do this, but if I had to pick an underdog, it would be the Chicago White Sox at plus 145. And I don't know if I need to check into an insane asylum at this point that I'm even uttering the word Chicago White Sox money line at plus 145. They've lost 20 in a row. But I do think that this price is a tad high. I don't know if I'll ultimately play it. Like, follow me in the app and you'll find out. But like Cannon has a 4.22 expected ERA, which is 0.3 less than JP Sears. He's probably going to see some positive strikeout regression as well. Right now, his strikeout rate is about 16%, but he's in the 65th percentile in chase rate. Has about a 5 to 6% higher whiff rate. Limits hard contact for the most part, which he's above average in. And aside from his bad game against the Tigers, he's been a pretty solid starting pitcher. JP Sears, I know Tanner likes him, but he does get barreled about 10% of the time, and he's such a high fly ball pitcher. Obviously, playing in Oakland and this big field probably helps him in this situation in particular, but he doesn't really limit hard contact. His BABIP is right around 280, which should probably regress more toward that 300 range, which we always talk about as around average. I just don't know if I just don't think the Oakland Athletics should be this heavy of a favorite. And I love the Oakland Athletics in general. I think they're a scrappy underdog team. I bet their win total before the season. They were playing really good baseball right now, but I still don't think that warrants this price with Cannon. I may look to play the first 5 instead. The White Sox offense is, the problem is, and this is the thing, I keep going back and forth, and you can hear it by me explaining my reasoning. Like, I'm like, there's an actual problem in that locker room, and they're forcing guys to run in pregame warmups because they're not, and they don't really give a fuck because they are going to go down as the worst probably team ever in baseball. But like, I just don't know about this price here. I know they're not as good against lefties, but they brought up so many new faces. Miguel Vargas is now playing. Lou Bob, it's only a matter of time, hopefully, before he does something. I don't know. It's like the devil and the angel on my shoulder. That's like, well, 20 losses in a row, like they're going to do it. And then it's the other one, like, it's the Chicago White Sox, Charlie. Like, they've lost 20 in a row. You're going to bet them. And then in the 8th or 9th inning, they're going to go 4 runs and lose like that. But I do think at the end of the day, plus 145 is a bit too high. So I'm thinking about pulling it. I just don't know if I can bring myself to it.
Okay. There's a particular book that's offering just when their next win will be, and you can go through their whole schedule all the way through the middle of August. I think this A's game that's Monday was like plus 200 or in the plus 250 range, like last week around this time, or middle of last week. So I don't know. I mean, but the A's are feisty. They're a frisky team. So
that's also and also that's if Cannon gets tomorrow. I think it's not like known who they're throwing out. He may not pitch tomorrow, and if that's the case, and it's like a bullpen game or something else, I don't know. So obviously we're doing this on Sunday night, so they haven't announced the starter. I think MLB.com or the Action app listed Cannon. ESPN has him possibly for Tuesday, but no one in for Monday. So I think they're still figuring out, because I think this technically might be Thorpe's.
MLB.com does have Cannon.
Does it? Okay. I don't know. Just be mindful. I'm waiting, obviously, just the confirmation. Because if he doesn't pitch, I don't know if I can bet them. But yeah, they have Stripling on Tuesday, Estes on Wednesday, and then Tyone on Friday against Crochet. Like that might be the spot if they don't win today or tomorrow.
What a sad scene that's going to be. White Sox at A's. Like, jeez, that's going to be it. I don't know.
If you think back, Brendan, I think last year when we did this podcast, I beat the drum on when the A's were the worst team in baseball. And remember, I think I went like 2 or 3 Fridays in a row picking them, and they won. But,
yeah, that happened a couple times, and maybe but too bad they don't play on a Friday this week, the White Sox. Against the A's, that is.
Yeah.
All right, let's do a couple more, and then we'll get out of here. Tanner's got 2 more, and then Charlie's got a 777s look.
Yeah, 2 money lines. I'll try and get out of here quickly. Cardinals money line, close to even money versus the Mets at home. Even though they're coming off Sunday Night Baseball, a loss, I still like them. This is the early game, 5:15 Eastern time, Busch Stadium. Mm-hmm. Anything minus 120 or better is good. I was pretty happy when the Mets acquired Paul Blackburn at the deadline because I looked at the Mets roster like I looked at the Red Sox, and I mostly liked what I saw, but I thought they needed arms to take the pressure off of youngsters Tyler McGill, Christian Scott, alongside the aging Jose Quintana, and one Sean Manaea. Monday's starting pitcher for the Mets has been a regular fade candidate of mine. He just keeps losing juice on that sinker-sweeper combination. Fewer ground balls, fewer strikeouts, more walks. His 3.5 ERA looks fine, but it's buoyed by a low BABIP and a high strand rate, and I expect him to pitch closer to his 4.5 expected run indicators. He absolutely obliterated the Twins in his last outing, by the way, shoved. But there was nothing in his underlying profile that indicated it was anything other than the Twins just swinging and missing at every lame duck slider. His fastball velo was actually down like 2 ticks in the start, and I have a hard time believing any of this is sustainable. He's allowed 7 barrels over his past 4 starts on 11% rate, but keeps stranding like 90% of runners. Conversely, I think Andre Palante, Cardinal starter, is a positive regression candidate. 4 ERA with a 3.5 expected ERA. I mean, he just forces ground balls galore. A 62% rate over the past 3 seasons that trails only Framber Valdez among starting pitchers. And it's surprising because he's a heavy 4-seam guy, but whatever floats your boat. So, I prefer the Cardinals starting pitcher in this matchup. I also prefer their bullpen because I really like the back end of the Cards bullpen between Helsley, Kittredge, and Romero. I think they're all available. I'll have to double check how they all played on Sunday Night Baseball. But the Cardinals have the 7th lowest reliever ERA in baseball this year, 3.6. The Mets have the better position player group, but the Cardinals have consistently trended up in the batter's box since the season started, and they've posted a 110 WRC plus over the past month. Arenado and Contreras have started to settle in as the weather has warmed up. Ultimately, I think the Cardinals have a solid 9-inning pitching advantage. I don't think the Mets' offensive advantage is enough to compensate for that. And Charlie mentioned this before. The Mets are in a brutal travel spot because they just finished a 3-game set with the Angels in LA. Now they fly to St. Louis for 1 makeup game, and then we'll fly back to Colorado for a 3-game set there before heading to Seattle for a 3-game set over the weekend. That's a tough travel spot. So I'm on the Cardinals, who I think should be considerable favorites. The other one I'm looking at is the Diamondbacks, the Snakes, money line against the Guardians, minus 130, maybe minus 140 or better. 6:40 Eastern time game at Progressive Field. I'm not the biggest Zach Gallen guy. He starts for the Snakes, but there's maybe a full run difference between him and Logan Allen, who starts for Cleveland. The changes to Cleveland's home park in the offseason have drastically increased their park factors, and Allen has been far from the beneficiary of that. He has among the worst stuff profiles in baseball and among the worst batted ball profiles in baseball, and he has a home run problem, especially in Cleveland, where he's allowed 7 in 33 innings, adding up to a 6.2 ERA. His expected run indicators are in the mid-5s. He's just not that good, and his fastball-heavy approach doesn't play at Progressive Field anymore. Meanwhile, the Snakes, white hot in the lineup. I mean, only the Yankees have produced more hitting WAR over the past month than the Diamondbacks, who have posted a 128 WRC plus during the stretch. We are not talking enough about Ketel Marte, who is a top 5 player in baseball and has a 1066 OPS since July started. But Jock Peterson, Corbin Carroll, Eugenio Suarez, they're all hitting better too. Really good offense right now, and much better than Cleveland's, which is going through serious regression after a magical first half. They have a 87 WRC plus over the past month. They're 26th in hitting WAR during that stretch. Stephen Kwan is slumping. Bo Naylor has been bad. Andres Jimenez has been awful. And I think the Guardians have the better bullpen, but they aren't much better defensively. Like people forget how good the Snakes are at fielding. They're fourth in defensive runs saved. And both bullpens were used pretty extensively on Sunday. So I think any rest advantages are pretty much neutralized. And I think the Snakes have a way better starting pitcher and a much better lineup. So I like them as moderate road favorites.
All right. Very good. It's like we talked about earlier. Guardians and Twins should be good starting next Friday. But kind of a gauntlet spot here for the Guardians and their schedule as well. All right. Charlie's got one more for us, and then we'll get out of here.
Yeah, I will say about the Mets Cardinals, it's a shitty spot for both of them. I kind of lean Mets. Manaea, I was at the last start with him and Festa. I do think Festa looks a lot better, by the way. I approve that Twins pick, but Manaea filled up the strike zone. Like that was the biggest thing. Like I watch every Met game, so I watch like Manaea way too much, and it felt like he throughout his all starts was basically a nibbler, pitches out of the zone, tries to get swings and misses. But then in this Twins game, for some reason, it was like, and I think it had to have been his career high in strike percentage. It felt like, the game, I went to the game as at 7:10 and I got home. I was home by 10. Like the game was so short. Manaea usually is a long starter because he nibbles, but he attacks. So if he attacks again, it'll be interesting to see.
But was that Manaea actually like showing better in the zone stuff, or was that just the Twins having an off night? Because I'm partial towards the latter. I don't think anything in his
I think it was a
profile
mixture
indicates that he was like shoving, even though he just obliterated them. But
it was a mixture of both. He just kept finding himself in 0-2 counts, 1-2 counts, and when you're a pitcher in that kind of situation, and you're I think he's an above average pitcher. Like it's really hard for the opposing hitter to not, especially I guess they didn't know what was coming because they looked clueless, the Twins, and I don't know if it was more Manaea. Like it's probably more the Twins were so clueless, but again, in a 1-2 count, 0-2 count, like you're going to be more defensive, and Manaea was taking advantage of that. But it'll be interesting to see how he performs tomorrow. But the other start. So now going back to my last pick, I'm probably taking Chapman over 1.5 total bases. Patrick Corbin's on the mound, so I'm fading him at some sort of way. It depends if I'm doing money line with the Giants, but it's minus 180. The team total, which I assume is going to be 4.5, 5. Or Chapman over 1.5 total bases. Chappie I think he's one of the more underrated hitters right now that we just haven't talked about. He's been incredible this season. Like for the Giants, has been perfect for him. Like his WAR is higher than it was last year by 0.4, and we still have a month and a half to play. Over the last 15 days, he's hitting 300 with almost a 1,000 OPS. Against left-handed pitching in general, he has a 300 average and a 900 OPS and a 48% extra base hit rate. And, one of the things that I've done a lot of late, and I do this on Monday, Wednesday, Friday, usually instead of the 777s, I'm breaking down the entire hitting slate. And one of the things that I like to do, and I've been using as a way to bet batting props, is looking at the rolling WOBA leaderboard over at Baseball Savant. So they take, or the expected WOBA. So they take the last 50 plate appearances and they see how good a player is doing based on the previous. And that basically tells you who's locked in at the plate right now. And that's how when I gave out the Jorge Polanco pick a few times back, that's how I've noticed like James Wood is playing really well. And if you look at his stats, he gave out Mason Wynn total bases from tonight, which the Sunday Night Baseball same game parlay hit. Same reasoning. Matt Chapman is top 20 in that rolling xWOBA leaderboard over the last 50. He's striking out a little bit less. His expected slugging and expected batting average is up. He's crushing left-handed pitching. I don't really need to say much about Patrick Corbin. I mean, the dude is atrocious. Like he might. I literally don't know why he's playing on this team when the Washington Nationals are out of the playoff contention. Why not bring up a rookie arm, a AAA guy, when you know that Patrick Corbin is the worst pitcher in baseball? There's nothing you can do to defend him at this point. So I'm gonna fade him in some way. I just don't know how. I mean, he's fresh off a 3-inning 11-run outing against the Arizona Diamondbacks. The Giants hit left-handed pitching really well. They're top 10 in WRC plus. So Chapman is probably my total basis play, but yeah, Patrick Corbin is pitching, and I got to get in before he's never pitching again.
I think that's it. We went a little long for a 9-game slate. A lot of Charlie had a chance to weigh
had
in.
A lot of fun.
weigh in on some stuff from the end of last week. So we are back for Tuesday slate. We will return tomorrow and do our record. Rate and review Payoff Pitch wherever you listen to your podcast. 5-star ratings and reviews are appreciated. Brendan Glassheen signing off. Thanks for listening to Payoff Pitch. We are Action Network's MLB betting podcast presented by BetMGM. Talk to you next time.